One of the most iconic things about the Fallout franchise is its vaults. These nuclear bunkers that people use to survive the apocalypse. It's a pretty big part of this world, but there's one vault in particular that I can't stop thinking about, and that is Vault 108, otherwise known as the Gary Vault. And you're never gonna guess who's inside. It is quite literally just full of guys named Gary, and the only word they can say is Gary.
Gary!
Why? Why does this exist? Was it always just Garys? And why can they only say Gary? Like a Pokemon. I choose you, Gary. I have spent hours exploring this vault, searching the wiki, just looking for any details across the entire Fallout series that could possibly explain all of this. And I'm gonna go over all those details with you, and at the end of the video, craft my own theory as to why in the world this Fallout vault only has guys named Gary. So I originally found the Gary Vault because I was exploring this nearby town called Canterbury Commons, a small sliver of the old world that wasn't entirely leveled by nukes. Most doors are boarded up and only a few people live here. But those that do are weird.
You and your pathetic tin cans are no match for my army.
The citizens of this town have nothing to fear. The Mechanist is here to protect them.
Ha! We'll see about that.
Go forth, my steadfast citizens.
So this town, population of like 5 technically, has its own superhero and supervillain. Sorry, the Mechanist and the Antagonizer. I love this. This is like my favorite kind of stupid. The thing is, the people in this town don't want to have a superhero and a supervillain. It's scaring people away. And so the leader of the town came to me and asked me to go find the superhero and villain and ask them to go away. So I set off to go and try and find them. And this is a completely separate side quest that's not really related to the Gary Vault. It's just what led me to find the vault. If you do want to see what's going on with them though, subscribe. And if this video gets 50k likes, I'll make another one. I did also say this in my Red Dead video, and we got well over 50k likes on that one, so Red Dead video coming soon. I went out scouring the wasteland for any signs of the Mechanist or the Antagonizer. That's not a good name. But what I found instead was an old wooden door nestled between 2 dead trees. The first thing we find is a skeleton on the ground, and it's far from the only one in here. It looks like raiders made it inside the vault, but they didn't make it very far. Blood is splattered across the computers here at the entrance. At first I thought the vault dwellers maybe fought off the raiders here at the door, but I learned pretty quickly it was probably these huge ass mole rats that just ran out to try and kill me. If Fallout is good at anything, it is throwing a nasty little creature at you. Look at this thing, he looks like my grandma's knuckle. Sorry, Grandma. Walking further into the vault, there's a lot of trash scattered around, like these animal skulls, these old cans, and smashed up computers. And this could either indicate that the people here survived on canned goods and can probably whip up a good barbecue, or it could just indicate that Bethesda likes cluttering their world with a bunch of shit to make it look grimy without any real story implications or thought for the narrative. Probably the latter, but I like to imagine that the Garys put on a beautiful barbecue. I mean, look at those bones, they are clean. There's gotta be a smoker in here. Throw a little brisket on there, good lord. Now from here, there are 2 doors we can go through. I went through the one labeled living quarters that had 2 skeletons hanging out in front of it. I figured if anyone was still alive here in this vault, they would be down here. The body of an average wastelander lays lifeless on the stairs. And from just beyond the doorway,
Gary? Gary.
we start to hear him. And there he is, there's Gary. Not just any Gary, mind you, this is Gary number 29. Implying that there are 28 other Garys in here somewhere. When he sees you, he's immediately hostile. There's no way to talk to him at all, and even if you could, all he would say is Gary. If you kill this Gary, there are 3 more behind him in the living quarters, ready to gang up on you. None of them say anything other than Gary either, it's just a cacophony of Gary. You like cacophony? That's my new word. That and palindrome. From what I can tell, they're just saying it to say it. You know, it's not like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy where he's saying I am Groot, but really it's a part of his language and the others can understand what he's saying, like Rocket can determine what he's saying. They're just saying Gary. Doesn't mean nothing. They're not communicating in any meaningful way. They're just saying Gary. I think for most people who played Fallout 3, this was their favorite, or at least the most memorable vault. The VR one is pretty cool, but I think this one is my favorite. I mean, once you hear the voice line of the Garys, it's kind of hard to forget this place. Fallout even has a Magic the Gathering collab where they have a Gary card. I was playing Magic the other day and I saw this card, and it was while I was working on this video, so it just felt like fate. And I would have bought it too if Magic cards were not so goddamn overpriced. Why is the Caesar Fallout deck $50? Are y'all okay? Are we all aware that this is paper? I could buy a printer for $50. Now that we're all on the same page about the Garys, I want to get into the specifics, you know, like how did they get down here? What are they doing down here? And why can't they communicate in any meaningful way? What are you doing? You stink, dude. Oh, you stink. I started by exploring the living quarters, hoping to get an idea of what they do down here, see if there's any differences in personality between the different Garys. I didn't find much to differentiate them within their rooms, but I did learn that they sleep like maniacs. I mean, they're already maniacs, but this bed specifically with like the cabinet about to fall over on top of it, this is not the only one in the vault. There are multiple of these. I'm sure it's just because the developers reused the room assets, but the fact that there are multiple beds like this kind of makes it look like they do it on purpose, which is really funny. I also learned the Garys love milk. Boy, do they love milk. They got some serious milk around here. You do kind of have to wonder if the environment designer for this vault was just kind of going around placing things randomly, or if he was sitting there like, oh, they love milk so much. I'm gonna put so much milk in there. Dude, they're gonna love milk. Gary likes milk. What do I put in this Gary's room? Probably some milk. I mean, they've got a whole cafeteria and they've got multiple fridges. What do I put in the fridge? Shit, probably milk, I think. This Gary's about to have some strong bones. Bone density on that Gary's gonna be crazy. All the milk. He's drinking a lot of milk. Oh, you know what this shelf needs? Oh, you know what? You know what? Can we get a little... He's like reviewing the work of another employee. He goes, it looks pretty good. What if we threw some milk up there? Yeah, no, I know there's water. What if we got rid of the water and put the milk? What do you mean, where would they get the milk? That's a stupid question. Don't ask that. Don't ask that. They have milk. They have a lot of it. Like, how does this much milk end up in the vault? Where is it coming from? Do the Garys produce milk? These are the important questions we need answers to in Fallout 5. Todd, take notes. Todd, have a glass of milk. I think Todd would drink milk. Do you think Todd drinks milk? Todd, let me know in the comments. You drink milk? They clearly weren't just sleeping like psychopaths and chugging milk though, because most of the Garys are down through this door in the cloning lab.
Gary!
This is the largest area in the vault, a maze of different hallways, and around pretty much every corner is another Gary.
Gary!
It almost looks like they're interacting or functioning normally down here. This one in particular seems to be doing some kind of experiment. The corpse of a normal wastelander was brought to this little medical pop-up room and placed onto the surgical table. I'm guessing by one of the Garys. It really looks like they were experimenting on him, or at least studying him in some way, which says to me that the Garys are I have really bad hiccups. Intelligent enough to do something like this. You know, I assumed that they weren't able to talk because they just lacked the intelligence. But maybe they're not stupid at all. They've just lost the ability to communicate and socialize properly. As I was investigating this table, I got swarmed by more Garys than I could count and had to mow down the rest of the living room. They all look identical, with no variation in their model or their clothing at all. I'm not even sure how you would distinguish them from one another without the nameplates at the top. Interestingly enough though, in this horde of Garys, there is one that's called Gary 1. I initially thought this was the first Gary, like the non-clone Gary, but it turned out to just be the first clone. So technically, he's no different from any of the others. At least hoping he would have something interesting, some piece of lore on him that I could loot, but he didn't have anything either. I kept exploring around, looking for more clues, trying to interact with everything to see what I could learn. The first thing I found was that interacting with a toilet in Fallout 3 technically means you're drinking from it. Why is that a thing? I thought something was gonna happen with the toilet. I just drank it. And then I found that there was a female dorm in this vault at one point, but it had been completely blocked off. The section was never meant to be explored because if you no-clip through, there's nothing back there. It's the same with a couple of other rooms, like this one room in the cafeteria and also the overseer's office that doesn't actually have a door inside of it. Kind of just a blank room. This may not seem like much, but it does indicate that this vault probably wasn't always all Gary. An idea supported by the single text log and lore piece in this entire vault. I am not proud to say it took me over an hour to find this little text log, but can you blame me? I mean, the texture looks very similar to the floor. Like, it blends in. But before we read that, this video is sponsored by Raycon. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of Raycon ads already, but this one's a little different because they have these new kinds of headphones called the bone conduction headphones. I'm wearing them right now. They vibrate the bones in your ears to play your music, your podcast, your phone calls, whatever you want to listen to, you listen to it through your bones. They're really good if you want to listen to something, but still be able to like hear the world around. It's weird too, because it doesn't really sound like headphones. It sounds like the music is playing in the room around me right now. I'm enjoying using them while I'm filming videos because it lets me play music in my ears, but because it's vibrating the bones, it's not like a normal speaker, it doesn't get picked up on my big fancy microphone over here. Oh! Look, Black Friday's coming up and Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide. So from everyday essentials to latest releases, it's the best time to upgrade your sound or just get ahead on gift. These early deals won't last long though, so shop now before they're all gone. Click my link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/bizlybc for up to 30% off during their Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. And make sure to use my link specifically. That's what tells Raycon I do good. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video. The text has been somewhat corrupted, but you can still make out most of it. It says, attempt number 53. Gary 53 is hostile towards all non-clones, as was the case with the previous 52 attempts. We may have to consider a means of disposal of the pre-existing Gary clones, as the observation rooms are getting quite full. Attempt number 54. Gary 54 exhibits no change in hostility towards non-clones. If anything, he is even more hostile. Dr. Peterson can attest to this, having been injured while examining Gary 54. Tomorrow we are going to dispose of several of the Gary clones, which will leave room for many more attempts. I don't know why that one was so hard for me. Okay, so with this, we now know there were others here performing the experiments on the clones. Specifically, a Dr. Peterson and whoever was writing this note. This is not confirmed at all, but I think it's possible that the person writing this note may have been the original Gary. Like maybe he was making clones of himself. Like I said, it's not confirmed, but whoever wrote this note is probably the skeleton laying on the floor next to it. We can also note that as of this log, they were up to 54 Gary clones. I killed a few Garys on my way in, but nowhere near 54. I actually went back and checked, there were only 13 Garys left in this vault, and these were all of their numbers. I mean, the log was suggesting they were gonna purge some of them off, so maybe they succeeded? But still, the clones survived and the rest of the people didn't, so something for sure had to have gone wrong. And it is confirmed that some of the Garys left the vault, because in another quest, completely separate from this vault, you can find a Gary clone who's been captured, specifically Gary 23. He was kidnapped by a group who wanted to steal his Pip-Boy. And this is pretty cool. There's actually an audio log that was cut from the game that paints a pretty strong picture of what happened there. Now the voice was different because it wasn't the final voice actors, but you get the gist.
Gary? Listen, son, I know Marilla was rough on you. I'm sorry, I really am. Gary? And Gary? Right, you can drop the actions. Gary! Gary! You know what? This. Hand me that saw and turn off the recorder.
Again, the audio log didn't make it into the game, but it's pretty clear in the quest that the Gary got his arm chopped off, they took his Pip-Boy, and he died from the blood loss. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but this small detail has me thinking two things. Number one, with 41 Garys unaccounted for, now 40 I guess, it is very likely that a lot of these Garys made their way out of the vault. Although with them being violent towards anything that isn't a clone and not being able to talk to anybody, I doubt they made it that far. I'm surprised that one made it very far. And two, Gary number 23 was captured for his Pip-Boy, the little computer that goes on your arm if you're a resident of a vault. But the rest of the Garys don't have a Pip-Boy. Now maybe it's just meant to be assumed that they have a Pip-Boy and it's just not like shown in their character model. But in the beginning of Fallout 3, you start in a vault and everyone in there is shown to have the Pip-Boy on their arm the entire time. So I feel like if they had them, you would be able to see it on. So potentially Gary 23 was smart enough to take a Pip-Boy on his own, or hear me out, the clones we're fighting now could have been created by other Garys after the collapse. So technically, Fallout 3 takes place 200 years after all of the vaults were sealed and the bombs were dropped. 200 years is a long time ago, so it begs the question, how are there Garys still alive in here? I did actually find a Reddit post that was asking exactly this question, and there were some real insightful answers underneath it. Gary. I mean, that clears up a lot for me, I don't know. There was actually an answer on there I found interesting, where they suggested that maybe the vault dwellers who lived in here went a long time before even beginning the experiments on the Gary clones. Or the Garys were created to be clinically immortal, basically meaning they can't die of old age or natural causes. Now, I have a theory that I'm leaning towards, but there's still one huge piece of evidence that we need before we can really start piecing all of this together. See, the Fallout vaults were created by a company called Vault-Tec as a place to conduct experiments on human beings. These experiments range pretty broadly, but given the state that we find Vault 108 in, we can assume that the experiment probably would have been human cloning. But this is where it gets really interesting. You can still find in Fallout 3 a pre-war computer from Vault-Tec that explains what all of the experiments are supposed to be. And after locating this computer and searching it specifically for information on Vault 108, the Gary Vault, there is no mention, no record of any cloning experiments. The actual experiment in this vault was just about leaving all of the roles unfilled. They chose a leader who would die of cancer within 3 years, gave them a power source that was supposed to fail in 20 years, and then provided them with no entertainment and extra weapons. Still a fucked up experiment, but it explains nothing of what we actually see when going into Vault 108. It lists plenty of people in the vault, but none of them are named Gary. And in fact, Dr. Peterson, one of the scientists credited in the note for the cloning experiment, is nowhere to be seen in here. The vault itself was fitted to accommodate 475 people for only 38 years, destined to fall into chaos. I think the intention of this experiment was to see how people would form a hierarchy of their own when everything goes wrong. So how did it result in what we've got? Well, this is where I get into my little theory on what happened here. I tried to take into account all the evidence in the game, but I do make a couple leaps in logic here, so just stick with me. What if the planned experiment only partially worked, and in turn became the catalyst for something completely different? I don't see any evidence to indicate that the power ever went out or faltered, so maybe the generator still worked over time and that didn't go to plan. Or the vault dwellers found a way to fix it. But if the overseer, the leader of this vault, did die of cancer within 3 years of the doors being shut, it's possible that his death led to the remaining vault dwellers discussing the ideas of mortality and disease, ways that they can beat things like cancer or maybe even old age. I mean, these people think they're the last remaining survivors of humanity, that they need to carry on the human race. It would make sense for them to want to try and prevent those things. With their leader dead, they may have elected a new one, and his name may have been Gary. I don't know about that part, but it would make sense why they'd want to clone him specifically. A leader that was chosen by the people. It would make him the perfect candidate for an experiment meant to combat old age and disease, which took their last leader. The scientists down here started creating clones of Gary. The clones would be the answer. They would never die of old age, and they'd be completely immune to things like cancer, as long as they drank their milk. Okay, that part doesn't make sense, but seriously, why is there so much milk? What they didn't expect was that the clones would come out wrong, with the loss of their ability to communicate properly and this aggression towards anyone that wasn't a clone. They tried over and over again to get it right, but each clone was more violent than the last. And all they could ever say was Gary. Kind of hard to lead the people if you just say Gary all the time. We know eventually they ran out of room in the observation rooms and wanted to get rid of a few of the clones. This is when I believe the Gary clones took over and killed the rest of the Vault Dwellers. And with all of the people dead and a lot of the clones dead, I think some of the remaining clones opened up the vault and left. Clones like Gary 23, but not Gary 1. I think he stayed back along with a few others and attempted to continue the experiment. That Wastelander on the table was being studied by the Garys, I think with the intention of either cloning him or creating more Garys. I do think the clones were successfully created to be immune to old age. That would make the most sense why they all look exactly the same, no matter when they were created or how long ago. And I also believe that their attempts to make more Gary clones have been unsuccessful. Just couldn't find any evidence to indicate that any of these Gary clones were created by other Gary clones, but I do think that's what they were trying to do. They don't seem stupid to me, just manic around anyone who's not a clone. I did briefly consider that because none of them were wearing Pip-Boys, that maybe they were clones created after the fall of this vault, and that's why they didn't have them, but it's way more likely that Gary 23 just found one. They probably weren't just handing out Pip-Boys to the Garys anyway. They really didn't see them as people if they were willing to just exterminate them. And that brings us up to present day, when we go down and find all of the Garys down there. That is all the information and a few guesses about what really happened in Vault 108. There are some Easter eggs in Fallout 4 where around the map you can find these colorful blocks that all spell out Gary. It's a cool nod that tells us that maybe the Garys are out and about on their way across the US, but There's really no more information to go off of than this. This vault probably has the least amount of established information on it. In fact, it's the only vault in Fallout 3 without a working computer inside. And I think that's what makes it so interesting to me. There's so little information, and a lot of it just doesn't seem to make sense, which means you, the player, are left to draw all of your own conclusions, concoct your own theories about what happened. Those are my favorite types of stories in video games, and that's why I love this vault so much. I'd love to know your theories about the Gary Vault. Is there anything I missed in here? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and click the card right here to go and watch another one of my videos. Bit of a short one for y'all today, but it's as long as it needed to be, and I thought it was a fun one. Thank you for 500,000 subscribers, 528 to be exact right now. I never said it directly, but my last video that had Baby No Money in it, I still don't know how I did that, was meant to be kind of like my 500,000 subscriber special, so I'm gonna put that one specifically up on the screen for you here. Sorry, I'm dressed like I sell beer to high schoolers, so just kind of what I had on today, but click the card. Thank you. Goodbye.